Namaskar and a very good evening everyone joined with us in this webinar series with today's webinar on Global Trends in Internal Audit, A Look Ahead, which is a continuing series organized by Internal Audit Standard Boards of ICI and hosted by Navsari branch of WIRC of ICI. I, Surgi Jain, moderating this webinar, a practicing chartered accountant since more than 7 years in Gwalior, Madhya Pradesh, having my core practice in corporate laws and related advisory services. I extend a very warm and hearty welcome to each one of you present with us and thank you for devoting your precious time. Now, I would like to request C. Amit Kumar A. Mehta, Chairman Navsari branch of WIRC of ICI, to continue with their opening remarks and start the event. Over to you, Amit sir.
Thank you, madam. Good evening to everyone and welcome to the opening ceremony of webinar on Global Trends in Internal Audit, organized by Internal Audit Standard Board of ICI and hosted by Navsari branch of WIRC of ICI. I am honored to serve as the chairman of Navsari branch and it is my pleasure to welcome you all to this important event. Internal audit is an essential function within an organization and staying up to date on the latest trends and development is crucial for professionals in this field. I would like to express my sincere gratitude to Chairman Sir, Sri Charanjot Singh Nadda Sir, and Vice Chairman Sri Gyan Chandra Misra Sir of Internal Audit Standard Board of ICI for organizing this webinar, and to our esteemed panel of speakers for sharing their valuable knowledge and expertise with us. I am confident that this webinar will provide valuable insights and information on the current state of internal audit and help professionals in this field. Thank you for joining us. Thank you, madam. Hand over to you, madam.
Thank you, Amitji, for briefing the event. Now let's move forward. Today we are having with us the person who is an institution in himself, not only in a particular field of internal audit, but in many diversified areas, very helpful, humble, and generous in nature. Words are not enough to define his personality. The one and only C. Charanjot Singh Nanda, sir, Central Council member ICI and Chairman of Internal Audit Standard Board and Digital Accounting and Insurance Board, Vice Chairman of the Banking, Financial Services and Insurance Committee. He was the member Quality Review Board set up by the Government of India, was the Central Council member of ICI from 2004 to 2016. He has chaired many of the committees including Internal Audit, Women Members Empowerment Committee of ICI, Professional Development Committee of ICI, Committee on Financial Market and Investor Protection, Banking, Insurance and Pensions, and many more. Member of SEBI Advisory Committee on Primary Markets and Mutual Funds from 2007 to 2010. He has represented ICI on SEBI Committee on Disclosure and Accounting Standards. He has served ICI since several years at various designations across different domains at regional as well as at country level. I request Nanda sir to deliver welcome address and keynote of the session. Over to you, sir.
Thanks a lot, Surbiji. C. Amit Mehta, the chairman of Navsari branch. Two of the revered speakers, CA V. Ravinder, who would be speaking on internal audit techniques, make the country's growth in right direction, and Mr. Premnath D, who would speak on internal audit, corporate governance, forensic audit, case study. This is very important. We also have a third speaker of the day. She is Madam Yukti Arora, who would speak on internal audit of cybersecurity. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm truly honored and excited to be amongst you. Let me very candidly put across that the board is very keen to ensure that we give the best to the membership at large. I joined this board way back. I joined the council way back in 2004. And then the then president, C.S. Sunil Goyal, who hails from Jaipur, gave me the responsibility of setting up this board, and I'm the founder chairman of this board. I would like to put across that we at the board are always excited to give you the best. I want to tell you that I'm sitting in Safa meeting at Lalit Hotel. One of our past presidents, Mr. Nihar Jamusaria, has taken over as the president of Safa. Congratulations to all our members across the country, and I was attending that, but I couldn't stop myself from giving my welcome address and keynote address. I will not speak much, ladies and gentlemen. I would just want to tell you that ultimately we all have to perform. Our basis of evaluation is performance. The more you learn, the more you understand, and the better way you exhibit things would ultimately set benchmarks for your success. Internal audit is a sunrise industry with so many greener pastures. All of you who would be interested for a new professional venture could venture out into internal audit and you will get a lot of clients and more importantly, job satisfaction because whatever you do emerges from your strong instincts to perform not only for your clients or the stakeholders, but for the regulators and the government. Ladies and gentlemen, I thank you all for reposing faith and coming in this Inter-Audit Standard Board's webinar so largely. Last time we had a webinar on Tuesday and we had more than 5,500 members joining in. So I'm really thankful that these many number of people joined and go home enlightened. I'm thankful to all the three faculties who on single insistence were very kind to come and address and ensure that all the doubts which you would have are put at rest. Thank you so much, ladies and gentlemen. Have a nice learning evening, Saturday evening. Thank you. Thank you so much. Over to Madam Surmiji. Surmiji, the dice is all yours now.
Thank you so very much, sir, for devoting so precious time in between a meeting. Thank you so much. Thank you. Now let's move forward ahead for today's first technical session. Internal audit techniques make the country's growth in right direction. And for this, I would like to introduce our eminent speaker, CA V. Ravindran, qualified chartered accountant and in practice since more than 35 years. Ravindran sir is a chartered accountant, DISA qualified, qualified insolvency professional, and qualified register valuer from Insolvency and Bankruptcy Board of India, qualified independent director from Ministry of Corporate Affairs, paneled in leading public sector banks and having vast experience in the field of bank audits, has served as faculty member in ICI in banking fields, ethical standard board, faculty member in valuation of ICI, ICSI, ICMA, Institute of Valuers, has served Institute of Chartered Accountants at various designations, including chairmanship of Salem branch of SIRC of ICI in 2017, co-opted member of Banking and Insurance Committee, co-opted member of Branch Coordination Committee in 2021. Apart from his professional career, he has conducted various TV programs, VIP interviews, including Shri P. Chidambaram, the former finance minister, loan consulting time, doctor time, and many more for local and satellite TVs. Has written various articles and presently writing a book covering business experiences and a book on banking frauds as well. Now I request Ravindra sir to share his valuable wisdom with all of us. Over to you, sir.
Thank you, madam. Vanakkam. I'm Ravindran. I'm from Salem, and my first thanks goes to the chairman of the branch, Mr. Amit Mehta, because first time I'm coming to this IASP presentation as a faculty, and though I've addressed a lot of programs, and it's my proud moment in my life to address this program. And wherever I go, I used to say that the auditors, let us take from the bank audit angle to the regular angle, that is a chartered accountant who is going to act as internal auditor for so many areas. And he is the backbone of the entire country also. This is my stance. When the topic is given to me, I want to say one very important thing, because if the internal auditor has failed in his duty, then everything will be failed. And next one is, all the internal auditors are called as early warning signal person, because they are the first hand information person, and they have to report everything in detail. They have to go in depth into the details. So I'll go with some important cases on my later presentation. And I'm going to start my presentation with a PPT. See, the topic which has been given to me is internal audit techniques versus country's growth. So internal audit, you know it, internal audit techniques also you know it, and what is the latest development, what is the actual effect of internal audit techniques and internal auditor, I am going to discuss in today's presentation. And what is the real effect of IAT, that is internal audit techniques. See, when an auditor is a successful person and he applies his mind during the internal audit, then he will definitely see that that unit is going to be a successful one. If the unit is successful one, then there definitely the unit or company that will go in right direction and it will earn profit. And if the profit is more, definitely the company or the organization, they have to pay tax, income tax or GST and other taxes. It goes directly to the country's development. So internal auditor, if he performs an audit in the right direction, then definitely he will definitely serve the country by making the auditing unit a successful one with profit so that you can pay more tax. And if the company is strong and if the company is working with profit, definitely it increases the employment, or sometimes it helps the employment opportunities to grow. And here, the very important thing, the failure person, I can say Satyam frauds. So you heard about Satyam. Satyam, if the auditor was gone for the audit, or if the internal auditor is very strong, then had he been pointed out the fraud, or had he been pointed out the irregularities in advance, then definitely there will not be a failure of Satyam frauds. Even I can say that the internal auditors are not strong at Satyam, so that when Satyam frauds have been reported, lot of people, they are out of employment. Even there was a craze in the market. There was a craze in the market that everybody has joined BE, Bachelor of Engineering. That is again computer science, every BE courses they joined with. Even a lot of people, they paid premium and also they joined the colleges. And suddenly, after the happening of Satyam event, there was a lot of employers, even they have driven out the employees because they want to cut short the opportunities, so that even a lot of people who has joined the course, also they are left with no job. So if the profit is there, then every company will will definitely provide you the very good salary along with the very good employment. But if the internal auditor has failed in that case of Satyam, that changes the entire environment of the employment, and particularly in the IT field. So it provides employment. If the internal audit technique adopted by the internal auditor is very good, then definitely that company will go in a very good profit. It increases the production and productivity also. It increases. Suppose if the auditor is good, then definitely the production will increase, and automatically productivity, that is labor involvement is also very good. They will give you very good productivity in the production. Here I will I will go with one very practical case in my area of audit. I've gone for one internal audit. They have given me, even right now also I'm doing the internal audit for that company. The MD, managing director of that company, he said, sir, every month I'm getting around 60 lakhs. But 60 lakhs profit I'm earning, but I'm hardly left with the money, and always I've got the financial strain. Can you identify and tell the strain? What is the reason for the strain? So then I study the project, then I study the entire functioning of the unit. Then I found that one very big mistake which have been committed by the staff of the unit. See, any employer, any businessman, he wants to earn. That's all. He will concentrate only on earning. He will concentrate only on growth of the unit. But the failure is, whenever goods have been returned, that goods returned have not been properly recorded in the books by the storekeeper. When it is not properly recorded by the storekeeper, automatically there will be a pile up of the stock. Then the loan amount is around 15 crores. 15 crores he has borrowed from a bank, and every month he has to pay minimum of 1,50,000. 15 crores is 1 crore 15 lakhs per month. He has to pay income. He has to pay interest. But when I observe the stock position, then I noticed that there are 6 crores of stocks, dead stocks, which have not been used for the last 6 years. So for the last 6 years, he has not converted that stock into any production. All the stocks have become dead stock. We can say that it is not slow moving, it is not non-moving, it's a dead stock. But when you sell the dead stock, you will get only 50% of the investment. So I advised him, you see, you have already paid 77 crores, 7 crores and odd, something towards interest for the last 6 to 7 years. So here you are losing the profit. So I have taken note of it. I have this information to the company, and they have now started to liquidate the stock, liquidate the dead stock. Even they slowed down the production because they want to liquidate because they are running out of the capital. So this is the effect of internal audit. So I have adopted all my techniques and I have found out this type of mistake in the company. So as an internal auditor, definitely he will help the unit, help the company, help the country to go in the right direction. Because if there is any mistake, we are the early warning person and we have to give the result. Next area is, if you are there as an internal auditor, you will definitely go through all purchases, whether there is any quality return or whether there is any quality raw material is used or whether goods have been returned and whether there is any failure in the production, whether there is any stoppage of production, whether employment, labor movement is correct or not. Everything you can concentrate as an internal auditor. You have to plan your schedule and you have to give the result. Here, if you are there, then you have to give a very good report, and this will definitely increase the production of the company. So the company will get very good production, and definitely the quality will also be increased. So internal auditor also plays a very vital role in producing the quality products, finished goods. And the internal auditor is also responsible for the adherence of all laws. Because the internal auditor, he should know all the rules and regulations of the country. He should know all laws of the country. So unless until we know the laws of the country, we will not be in a position to advise the client. So we should know the income tax provisions. We should know the GST provisions. We should know the Act. We should know Provident Fund Act. We should know Labor Act. We should know Explosive License Act. Every act we should know. Then only we will be in a position to advise the clients. So this is also another very important thing, because if there is any failure of adherence to the laws, then definitely government will levy huge penalty on the company. If the penalty is levied on the company, automatically what will happen? Then the funds of the company will be diverted and paid in the form of penalty. Automatically, there will be a fund strain in the company. So this will definitely make the company a failure person towards the financial commitments which they have got from the bank. If there is any failure in the financial commitment to the bank, automatically banks will definitely classify that account as NPA. Then they will go for the auction and they will initiate the SARFAESI proceedings and everything. So the internal auditor, when he adopts internal audit technique, he must know all the rules and regulations of all laws of the country. Then only he will be a successful person as an internal auditor. Then country is having a favorable balance of payment position. So this is very, very important. See, here, if there is any violation of FEMA, automatically the company is in trouble. So as an internal auditor, you should also be a master of FEMA. You should be a master of FEMA. And if you will be a master of FEMA, then automatically you will follow all the exports and imports rules and regulations. So you can definitely advise your client to go in the right direction. So if the client goes in the right direction, then definitely he will do the export. And even for the export also, he has to help the company to steady the financial position of the person who is buying the goods from the company. That is export buyers, you have to do it. So you can also steady the export buyers. So this is also another thing. Indirectly, if the company is there and if the company is doing very good export and all the payments of foreign exchange has come to the country, then definitely our country is having a favorable balance of payments position. Next one is, in case if there is a failure. So I can say that our banks have faced a lot of problems with the two top VIPs of fraudulent person. That is Vijay Mallya and Nirav Modi. See, Vijay Mallya thing, if the auditor has failed to take note of the transaction, because even I heard, I have not faced, even I am not involved in any such thing. See, whenever any auditor goes for the concerns of Vijay Mallya and Nirav Modi, they will be, they are looking at, they looked the auditors in a different manner. So the auditors, there is no other go because of favoritism. They have not given a positive report. They even say when there is any fraud, you have to report it, but there's a failure, duty done by the chartered accountants. So in case the internal auditor has failed, then definitely you will definitely find the cases like Vijay Mallya and Nirav Modi. They are the first disturbing factor to the nation. So these type of fraud will be definitely avoided if the internal audit techniques have been properly used by the internal auditor. It's a service to the country, because internal auditor, I can say that all the auditors, not only internal auditor, any auditor who are doing the audit, they will definitely give, though they are receiving the fees, that is a different issue, but here they are giving service to the country. This is what I want to say. So I request all the persons who are doing the internal audit, be sincere, and you have to apply your mind. Don't involve in any negative manner, so that you have to, the main intention is you have to help the country. Here, internal audit techniques helps the government sector. It helps the government sector to grow, because the government sector plays a very, very important role in the country's economy, because there are a lot of government sectors which provides social services, which provides employment opportunities, which provides which provides all types of tax help to the country, and also all the social infrastructure have also been done only by the government sector. So if the internal auditor is sound, and if he directs or if he helps, or if he advises the unit, definitely this government sector will be a successful person. Next one is social. See, internal auditor also helps the company to grow. It gives CSR, social corporate social responsibility is there. So it helps the company to grow. The auditor, he will definitely point out the mistakes. This has to be, plugged. This is the right way you have to go. So it's an advice. He is an advisor to the company. So if he does the internal audit, definitely there will be an improvement in the social category, and definitely it will help the company and organizations to grow. So that is also another role in which internal audit techniques are useful. And the main thing is our country should be financially sound. So if you want a company to be financially sound, then banking and financial institutions should go in a right direction. See, one can say that, sir, one bank has failed. So automatically what will happen? It is not, the effect is not only on the shareholders, it also affects the country's development. So if the auditor who has gone for the audit of the banks and financial institutions, and if he points out the correct mistake at the correct time, or if he gives an early warning signal person, definitely all the banking and financial institutions will go on the right direction. Even RBI has come out with this, because it's an advice, it is a caution to the internal auditor of banks. We can say that we are also going for the internal audit in the form of, say, content audit, revenue audit, stock audit. So here, the RBI has come out with one clear instruction which say that if any fraud is undetected during the course of audit, then the auditor is held personally responsible for the loss to the bank, apart from losing our certificate, facing our institute action, facing court action, facing the regulatory action and everything. So the internal auditor must do his duty in the right direction, so that we can help the country by doing the correct report, and we can help the country by improving the banking and financial institutions functions in the right directions. And the success of internal audit. The success of internal audit technique in the success of the country, it depends on the internal auditors. This is my stand. This is my stand. So unless until the auditor is successful, then everyone is a failure person. Because if there is a fraud, if it goes on it goes on one direction, so that they are looting the money. When there is no finance available to the company, automatically everything will go out. So in the form of production failure, the form of raw material purchase failure, in the form of collection failure in the collection machinery, everything it will go. So the auditor, internal auditor, is the right person to guide the company in the right direction. So the success of the company, the success of the country depends, and it is in the hands of the internal auditor. And who are all called, who will be appointed as internal auditor? Maybe first thing we can say, being a chartered accountant, we can say that chartered accountants, company secretaries, CMAs, and other persons like their regular employees, MBAs, they are also they have been appointed as the internal auditors. But everyone should have the knowledge, everyone should have the experience, should have the experience. So they should have this, then only he will be a successful person. So whatever they want to implement in the audit, they must study the project, they must study the company in the right direction so that they can do the audit in a successful manner. And here, the golden principles of internal audit techniques. Internal audit techniques are integrity. So this is a base based on which we have to do the audit: integrity, objectivity, then competency, confidentiality, and independence. All these 5 are called as golden principles of ITA. Now, I want to discuss about the integrity. What are the integrity that you have to see? Because as an internal auditor, you must have integrity. Here, that internal auditor, he must be a honest person. You should have some fairness. So without honest and without fairness, if he is doing the audit, definitely he not only spoils the company, he spoils the country's growth also. So this is the first thing. And in case if the auditor is having some dishonesty, that means he is adjustable to everyone. Then what is the effect? Here, if any government funds have been misused, then automatically that is a failure person. See, there are a lot of governments want to tell a very important case, that is utilization of subsidy, because the government is giving a lot of subsidy to the person who has started the industry. In subsidy also, there are 2 types of subsidies. One is front-end subsidy, second one is back-end subsidy. See, in one of the banks where I have gone for audit, I have noticed this. Because the government has given the TOTCO loan. TOTCO loan means that is applicable for the scheduled caste and scheduled tribe. The government is giving, say, for 1 lakh, the government is giving 50% subsidy. And the banker, what he did, because a lot of pressures have come to the bank manager, and also the bank manager, he also want to involve in that type of some misuse of the funds. What he suggested, he asked the customer to open a SB account, ask him to remit the 50% of the loan as loan in his SB account. Here, 50% of subsidy has come from the bank, and he has released 1 lakh to the customer. So it is a back-end subsidy. It's a back-end subsidy. But suddenly, after 2 days, he has transferred the fund of subsidy to the loan account, and also he has transferred the fund from the SB account to the loan account. He has closed the loan. So that means there is no asset creation. Now, when I go there and when I observe as an auditor, I observe that there is no fund, there is no assets have been created, and the manager is a party to the agreement to defraud the government funds. Even I use the words squaring of the government funds. So if that is there will not be any development. So if the auditor, if he is, suppose if they also offered some money to me, I said no. So you should be a straightforward person. So in case if there is any misuse of government funds, government funds not only is there in the subsidy, it will also be always is there in the all government schemes. So misuse of government funds should be noted. And any fraud in the organization, this is a very, very important thing. Internal auditor, he must know all the rules and regulations. Even I can say that you should know all rules and regulations of all acts, so that if there is any fraud, then that has to be immediately pointed out by the auditor. So a fraud in the organization should be immediately identified by the auditor, unless until if he is not having any integrity, then he will be also part of the fraud. So a fraud, in case if it is there, then one can say that the auditor is failed in his duty. Even a lot of people, they say that in case if there is any fraud, immediately the person, they say that what the internal auditor who has been appointed by us as concurrent auditor or revenue auditor or stock auditor, what he did. So they put the blame on the internal auditors, or they put the blame on the chartered accountants. So if there is any dishonesty, definitely if there is any fraud in the organization, it will not be found out. And the fraud in the organization, not only from the internal auditor, even from the employees also, there will be fraud, and the auditor should be in a position to get or to identify the frauds in the organization. And accept bribe. Suppose if we find out anything, see here, I want to say one very important thing. Few people who are going for the stock audit, and when they went to the unit and they found that there was no stock or there was no DP drawing power, and when they discuss this with the client, and the client, they will give some gifts to the chartered accountant. Sir, don't give the report, give me their positive report. So if you accept like this type of bribe, definitely you will be losing your integrity. So I want to say to this forum that the auditor should be a straightforward person, and even he should not accept the coffee or tea offered by the units, by the banks, or by the company. So this is also another point of failure of integrity. Next one is siphoning of funds. Automatically, what there is a credit in the account and they debit the money to someone's account. See, normally they say that when there is any debit, and you should know where the credit goes. It is the role of the internal auditor. So accounting principle is when there is any debit, there will be some credit. Where if there is a debit, where the credit goes, whether the credit goes to the right person or not, that also you have to see. So siphoning of funds will be there. If you are not having integrity, then definitely there will be scope in the company, there will be scope in the bank, there will be scope in the government sector. Definitely they will square the siphoning of the funds. And here the integrity is required for whom? This is what this I have. This is only a checklist. It's only a checklist. So the internal auditor, a chartered accountants, or CMA, or company secretaries, they should have got the integrity while they carry out the duty. Next one is employees of the organization. They should be loyal to the organization because the employees are the responsible person for the company to grow. So they should have integrity. Then companies also, because they should not deviate the rules and regulations. They should have the integrity. They have to run the company in the right direction. There should not be any violation or deviation of the Companies Act, and everything should be there. Otherwise, it's a failure one. Next one is all professionals, not only chartered accountants, all professionals. Even integrity is there for the doctors also. I can say that doctors also, because during COVID, I have found this thing. I found one very big thing, because during COVID, a lot of hospitals, a lot of doctors, they have, even I can say that there is even some paracetamol itself is enough, but he has converted this case to COVID case, and thereby they charge more. Even they looted the money from the insurance companies also, because when their fees will be around 50,000, but they quoted 5 lakhs, and they got the money from the insurance company, and they got it as a profit for the hospital. So if the insurance company is pays the amount, then automatic sufferers are public, because the insurance companies, they will run out of the financials. So this is also very much important. So professionals all the professions, all kinds of professionals must be must have the integrity. Then police people definitely because they are the real custodian of the public. So they are having the integrity, and only few they commit some mistake. But according to me, all the police team, they've got the very good integrity. And politicians, all the politicians now they started to have the integrity. Only few they did some mistake and they lack integrity. So all this integrity is very much important, because if all these people say police, we can take police in the traffic, and if anybody is not wearing helmet, definitely he will charge some fine. And the people they say that, sir, instead of 1,000 rupees, I'll pay you 200. Suppose if the police has lost some, it's not having integrity, then he will leave the guy. So it should not be there. So integrity is required for every person in all sorts of life. Integrity is there, definitely the country will go in the right direction. This is the first golden principle. Next one is objectivity. That is, all the internal auditors must have the professional competency, have very good professional knowledge. You should have the professional competency. I can say that now the courses introduced by IBBI with reference to insolvency professional and register valuers, it's a professional competency, because they have given a very good training to the persons who have cleared the examination, and even they are conducting regular application programs also. And this will be definitely useful for them to do the audit. This will definitely help the chartered accountants while doing the audit. So all the persons who are all called, who are going as the internal auditor, they should have the professional competency. And second one is assessment of facts with utmost care. So the auditor, on the prima facie, he should not come to any conclusion. So you have to look into the case step by step. You have to assess the case. Then only you have to come to the conclusion. When you assess the case, definitely it will you will definitely go in the right direction. So this is another objectivity of the internal auditor. Then the auditor, he should not make reckless and irresponsible statement, because if the auditor says that, so I have found out this mistake, and later on when subsequent inquiry, when it was found that there was no mistake, then automatically it has got very bad image on the chartered accountants also, or the internal auditors also. So you should not make reckless and irresponsible statements. Then internal auditor has to report with the evidence. So whatever you want to give report, you should have evidence. That is, even in the audit, you should have the proper working papers. So all the evidence you should. So internal auditor has to report with the evidence. Next one is competency for the internal auditors. That is, he must apply appropriate skill and knowledge, comment adequately with the experience. So anything experience is required. So during my discussion, I used to say that unless until you got experience, definitely you will not be a successful person. So you have got the experience, but you must have skill and knowledge. So without skill, without a knowledge, and if you are doing the audit, definitely, and without experience, we are doing it, then you will be a failure person. If you are a failure person, automatically the company will fail. And if the company has failed, automatically it is a disturbing factor to the country. So the starting point is internal audit. Next one is refrain work from which are outside the scope of his skill and competence. We are chartered accountants. We have to do the profession. We have to do the audit. We should not go and do the business. We should not go and do some other thing which are outside your knowledge, which are outside your skill. So you can go there, sir, I'm going to build the house. You can build the house with the help of some nation, with the help of the engineer. You cannot go and do the duty of the engineer. So you have to refrain from the scope, from the skill which you are not having here. Suppose if you want any additional help, you can get the help from the professionals. And the performance of audit and preparation of audit report by persons possessing adequate training, experience, and competence in audit. So this is what I want to say, that every person, say you have got the training. Suppose if you are sending your staff, they should have the proper training. So the proper training you can get from they can get from you or from the company or from the, there are a lot of trainers available from that, they can get the experience. So all this will definitely help the internal auditor to go in the right direction. So if everything is being done, if everything is being prepared in the right manner, then the audit report will be a quality one. And the main thing which we lack, update the knowledge, update the audits, update the laws. There are a lot of things that comes into the field. So you have to update all rules and regulations. You have to update the laws. Suppose if you are giving advice, after some time, the government has removed that class and they implemented some new section, then that effect of the new section, you must go through and you should understand, and you have to convey the same thing to the company where you are doing the audit. So update the knowledge of audits and laws. That is another important thing. And follow the current development in auditing standards, procedures, and techniques. So as an auditor, you must know what are the accounting standards, that auditing standards that you have to follow. What are the procedures that you have to follow? What are the techniques that you have to follow? You have to update everything. So that means as an internal auditor, you should first equip yourself with the latest development, with the current development, with the latest skill, and you should be different from others. Even I can say in a lot of things, in a lot of places also, I used to say you should be different from others because you should be a pioneer in the implementation. Even in my area, in my Salem area, even I am proud to say that I'm the pioneer who did the bank audit. Because when I went for the bank audit, I am the pioneer. Only after me, only lot of chartered accountants they follow. So I have identified one area and I have gone for it. Even my experience is when I identified one area and when I go for the audit or when I go for the practice, automatically a lot of people they will come. So this should be there. So as an internal auditor, you must implement the pioneer techniques which others have not followed. So this is another suggestion I want to give through this forum. And the confidentiality of the internal auditor. That is, you should safeguard all the information, because all the first-hand information here, suppose you, I can say that one thing, because I want to say from the bank audit angle. So bank auditor is also one of the internal auditors. I can say from the bank auditor angle. Suppose if you are going to the bank and if you ask for any details, the bank manager, he will definitely give. So this is the thing. Then you must safeguard the information. You should not reveal the information openly. So that is why whenever you are going for the audit, whenever you are going for the any type of audit, they will take the confidentiality acceptance, that you should not reveal anything to anyone without someone's knowledge. Here, even I can say one very good big case which has happened in my lifetime. One is there is 100 crores fraud, because here this is also, I have safeguarded that information, but I am not supposed to reveal the names and everything bank to the others, because that is fidelity and secrecy I have given. In that case, that is there is a one person who has opened the current account in a dead person name, and more than 100 crores of checks have been routed through that. All the checks are legal, compensation checks. And nobody has followed it. Even the bank manager, general manager, GM, bank manager, general manager, and the panel advocates, they were all colluded and they have swindled the money. So I've got all the information, and as per the fidelity and secrecy, I have to report only this to the head office of the bank. But on seeing my report, the branch manager, the general manager, both of them have resigned from the job, because they sense the seriousness of the issue. But when I revealed this to the media, definitely that bank share will go like anything. Definitely it will come down. So as an auditor, you must safeguard all the information that you have received. Next one is spill out lead to statutory, legal, and professional violations. Statutory violation, you are not supposed to reveal the secrecy. We are not supposed to reveal the information which you have received during the audit. If you have released that, definitely it will lead to some statutory failures, legal failures, and professional violations. This is the confidentiality you must have in your profession. And this is we can say that tax authorities, whatever information they receive, before going for search and seizure, they maintain the confidentiality. Then based on that, they are doing the work. Then police, finance ministry, CBI. Yeah, these are the persons, even professionals also, I can say that they have to maintain the confidentiality. So even I can say that the tax authorities also are the internal auditor for the country. Police also, they are the internal auditor for the public. Finance ministry, they are the internal auditor for the entire financial. CBI, they are the internal auditor to verify, to scrutinize the specific cases. So the confidentiality is very much important in the internal audit. This is what I want to say. Next one is independence. So you should have been given free hand to do the audit. Suppose if you have pointed out anything and if you are not freely allowed to do the audit, then automatically there will be chance for fraud. So independent appraisal activity is very, very important for the internal auditors, and they are free to do the audit. They are free to do the audit. See, this year, say one can say that even I am going once again go to the banking angle because I am very familiar in banking rules, NPA. If you identify one account as the NPA, automatically you will get a lot of pressures from the, not only from the branch manager, you will get a lot of pressures from the regional office, zonal office, from the head office. Don't put this as NPA. And even I want to say here one very important thing, if you failed to identify one account as a NPA, even I can say in something, now there is a wrong classification or non-classification of NPA will definitely, you have to face the problems. You will definitely get notice from the Reserve Bank of India. So whenever you identify one item as fraud, whenever you identify one item as a deviation, you must report, and your work should not be disturbed by anyone. And you should have got the boldness to report it. Even I can say in my various presentation, I used to say that auditors are not safe inside the branch when they detect the fraud. So because their life is not there in their hands. Even I have got 2 times life threatening in my audit career. So you have to be very, very careful, and the auditor should be free to do the work. Then report all the material facts and figures, and you should not be influenced by anybody, and you should not do any favor to anyone. So independence of the auditor, internal auditor, independence of an internal auditor will definitely make the internal auditor to apply the internal audit techniques the right direction. If they apply the internal auditor, internal audit techniques the right directions, definitely they will get the very good result, and it will definitely help the company to grow. If there is any growth in the company, automatically the company will give a lot of employment opportunity, and even they'll be helpful to go for the infrastructures, and even they will go for the country's development by way of collection of helping the government to get the more tax. And it's only case study I want to say by using internal audit techniques. I want to say here from the banking angle, because it's a case study, it's only a case study. And first thing is concurrent audit. Concurrent audit is a very, very important thing, because as an internal auditor, you have been appointed as the concurrent auditor. Because you are a chartered accountant, you are eligible to get the concurrent audit. You will be called as internal auditor to do the concurrent audit. So you have got a lot of manuals. You have to follow all rules and regulations of the concurrent audit. Here I want to tell one very, very good case. See, when I went for a concurrent audit of one of the banks, I noticed that there was a long queue in front of the cash counter. Then when I noticed the transaction, what has happened, when I probed the transaction, I came to know that lot of cash has been deposited by one particular customer to that bank, and that bank, because the bankers, they are not supposed to have huge cash. Their bank releases the cash after the clearinghouse time. So people, they used to they used to get the money. So when I go further and did the study, I found that the persons who have remitted the cash into the bank, they run a parallel banking activity. Because the manager has colluded with that party, so it is a parallel banking activity. Because of this activity, the bank has lost a lot of revenue. So as a concurrent auditor, I can say that concurrent auditor or early warning signal person. Even I can give lot of examples in the concurrent audit. So being an internal auditor of a bank, as a concurrent auditor, you must be very, very, I mean, you should visualize all the transactions and then only you have to do the audit. Don't take everything on the face of it. You have to read, you have to read in between the lines so that you can enrich with your knowledge. Next area is stock audit. In stock audit, I already said the the stock audit is being given to the charter accountants, and they are called as that person. Charter accountant is called as the internal auditor to conduct the stock audit for a particular unit. So you should know all rules and regulations of conducting the stock audit. Then how to value the stock, how to whether all purchases have been included, whether LC stocks have been included, whether sundry creditor stock is there, whether those stocks have been eliminated from the drawing power. Even I can say that once in quarter, the branch has to get a stock report and credit report, stock and data report from the charter accountants. The persons, if they sign blindly the stock and credit data audit report, then they are not doing their duty on the right direction. They are going on the, they are going against the bank. So stock audit also plays a very vital role. Particularly, you have to see the non-moving stock and the debt moving stock. This is the role of the internal auditor. As a stock auditor, you must go through debt stock and the non-moving stocks. The next item is credit audit report. In credit audit report, here I want to suggest to the fellow members, you must do the credit audit only based on the sanction letter. You should know. First thing, as an auditor, as an internal auditor, you must know the terms mentioned in the sanction letter. One is the we can say that funded advance and non-funded advance, primary security and collateral security, then cash, term loan and working capital loan. All these terms you should know. Priority sector and non-priority sector. All this you should know. And based on that, you have to start your audit. So while doing the audit as an internal auditor for the credit audit, I want to suggest you must know the technique of reading the legal opinion. You must know the technique of reading the valuation. Because normally the managers, they rely on the legal opinion. They rely on the valuation report. But as a chartered accountant, as an internal auditor, I want to suggest one thing. You can refer the legal opinion. You can refer the valuation report, and you have to form your own opinion. Then you have to compare that own opinion with the legal opinion and the valuation. So these are the things that you have to take care of. Credit audit session, credit audit, that is addressing a credit audit. It will involve not less than 3 hours because it's a very wide section, wide area of internal audit that you have to carry out the credit audit. Next one is revenue audit. So revenue audit, normally you have to go and get the surplus of the banks with reference to charges. And because this is a very big area wherein the companies, they are losing the audit. I'm not talking only from the bank audit angle, even from the companies angle, because they have to, there should not be any leakage of revenue audit. This is a role of the internal auditors. They have to take care of this. And there are so many audits available as an internal auditor, as the internal auditor specifically appointed for some other purpose. I can say that these are the specific appointment given by the banks as an internal auditor to conduct the concurrent audit, shock audit, credit audit, revenue audit, NPA audit, fraud audit, housing loan audit, then even monitoring of the accounts. These are the specific internal things. There are a lot of areas available to the chartered accountants as an internal auditor, but the thing is, they should apply their mind. They should do the audit in the right direction. So this, if the internal auditors, they did that duty in the right direction, definitely it will be it will be definitely helpful to the organization which they appointed you. And if the organization, they earned a profit, definitely if they will provide the employment opportunities, definitely they will help the countries to grow in the right direction. These are the things that I want to say with today's presentation. And with the less time, I've almost covered everything. Even it's an ocean. Internal audit is an ocean. You can go to any extent. So with this, I'm very much thankful to the branch and IASB for giving me this maiden opportunity, because this is the first time I'm taking the class other than the banks. Sometimes I have related some incidents of banks to the internal audit, because all the auditors are banks are also called as internal auditors. From that angle also I presented the paper, and I once again thank the chairman of the branch for giving me the opportunity, as well as to the IASB chairman and the organizers. And thank you very much. I'm just closing my presentation. Over to Madam Surbi Jain.
Thank you so much, sir, for sharing your wide perception and experiences with respect to industry and professional specific challenges. Thank you so much. Now, moving forward for today's second technical session, very interesting subject, internal audit of cybersecurity. And for this, we are having with us our eminent speaker, CA Yukti Arora ma'am, CEO, Omnia Consulting Services LLP. Yukti ma'am has more than 2 decades of experience in the field of process and risk advisory. She is chartered accountant, CISA and DISA qualified, and has previously worked as director with risk advisory function in Big Four. She has worked extensively in manufacturing, consumer, automobile, e-commerce, BPO, and IT sectors. She is a regular faculty with Digital Accounting and Assurance Board and Internal Audit Standards Board of ICAI. She also regularly delivers lectures and training for ISACA and III Delhi chapter. Without taking much of time, I request Yukti ma'am to share her views and perception with all of us. Over to you, ma'am.
Yeah, thanks a lot for giving me this opportunity to share my views on internal audit of cybersecurity. Without wasting much of our time, I would just straight away go to the topic, because this is a very vast topic and it's a very relevant topic in the current environment. So what we'll quickly be covering will be by the need of internal audit, the scope, the risk assessment, and some controls and how to report on it. So these are the key aspects which we will be covering in our today's discussion. So let us look how businesses are done today. Like if you look at any business which is there, whether it is purchase or HR or inventory, every aspect of the business has been digitalized. Every part of the business is through some or other linkages. Like for instance, to hire, there are a lot of like people go and look at LinkedIn, and then there are various other places where the profiles are sourced. And then those profile interviews and all are also nowadays being held digitally. There are a lot of reference check which happens on a digital manner, and then the recording and the HR master happens in a digital way. That information flows to the various other like sources, and financial reporting, etc. The data which is stored over here gets based on that, it gets recorded, right? Similarly, purchase, inventory, warehouse management, all of them are linked to each other. Sales, like based on the sales only the planning is done and then the purchase is done. So entire business is nowadays being digitalized, and it is digital, and every aspect of it is connected. So when everything is connected and things are being interacted, definitely there is a new risk which is there, which is of the connection of the things on the internet, and that risk is a cybersecurity risk. And it brings a new perspective, it brings a new challenge and a new area for an internal auditor to think, because if they do not cover this area, they are missing a very, very big piece. For instance, let us look at case of our third party like vendors, the supply chain. The entire supply chain is digitized, right from the time we are thinking of getting an item, the sourcing of it, the supply of it, the transportation of it, is through some or other like mechanism, and the information flows in a digital way. Even we can track nowadays where the transporter is, and how when they will be able to deliver, and the correct view can be presented. Similarly, the companies can very well, like as soon as they are receiving the material, the information flows in a very digital way of the receipt of a material. So when things are so much connected, don't you think it is very important for us to do an assessment of the vendors from a cybersecurity perspective? Because when they are connecting to our system, they may be exposed. Even if our systems are very well secured, they may expose certain links through the API calls which we are making. Plants nowadays, all of them are trying to automate maximum part of the manufacturing process. When they are trying to put sensors, they are trying to put various types of robotic things. When all of these things are getting implemented, and also a workflow, a small mistake in that thing may impact the entire production, may impact the security of the whole of the plant. And therefore it is extremely important that auditor do consider this cyber security, specifically when they are connected plants. And we are moving to industry 4.0. Customer connects. Nowadays, all the customer connects are through chatbots, through various digital support systems, through call centers, which are connecting people digitally, giving them feedback, asking and providing them solutions, right? So when they are connected, they definitely need data, right? When that means a lot of our data is moving to these digital customer support, so that they are providing services. When they are providing services, if they get incorrect data, if the data is breached, it will be a huge loss, right? Both from the reputation as well as also from the perspective of trust and integrity of the organization. So definitely that is another area which needs to be considered. Innovation. Companies think of innovation, trying to bring digital transformation, etc. But a small like breach can actually halt the entire innovation journey, because it brings a fear, right? So therefore, every innovation should always start and discuss about the cyber risk also, so that those things are considered, and we are taking a conscious and the right decision, and building up the right controls and the environment when we go in a digital transformation journey. Many companies have all adopted a hybrid way of working, and there is a like work from home type of thing which is going to continue, and which is continuing, right? And therefore it also exposes the companies to a new risk, which is on being connected every time through the various like devices which are on the internet, which is outside their control, right? So this all needs to be considered. So the scope of cybersecurity broadly, like I can tell, it covers the aspects of being strategic. Like you have to always think like where we have to be securing, being where we have to put our right like thing, and what is our risk appetite. Providing mechanisms so that we have a preventive controls and make the things secure. And not only having that preventive control, but also having a mechanism to ensure that we are regularly looking at it. And something, if those controls are not working, we have a detective control, and by being always vigilant. And the last part of it, which is very important, because many times you may put a lot of it, but still there could be a cases where there is a breach. So being resilient, how to respond from it, how to recover from it, how to minimize the impact of it. So it covers all these domains, being strategic, secure, vigilant, and resilient. And it covers the risk which may arise from the various threats. Like nowadays, we are seeing various nations attack, like the companies, specifically the ones which are very significant in any economy, those are being subject. The infrastructure is being affected, companies are being subject to attack by the various geopolitical threats which are arising. We are seeing a lot of criminal activities because cyber crimes are very difficult to detect, and sometimes to bring them to punishment is also difficult. So, and they are easy to penetrate. So, and their impact is also very high. So, therefore, because of that, they are very, very big source of this thing. Then we are seeing some people who just interested start doing. Sometimes the poor, like some of the individuals who are not aware of like what various types of risk which are there, that indirectly or indirectly they disclose the information. So insiders and even the service providers, they are the various like reason why we are having these types of attack. And then the substandard developed product which are developed without taking into consideration cyber risk into perspective, on the requirements of privacy which is into perspective. These all are the common threats, and the scope therefore of internal audit covers looking at the policies and procedures, making sure that there are enough controls on the devices when they connect to the internet and intranet. That means the endpoint devices, that means our laptops, our pen drives, our mobile devices, our printers, our scanners, our various types of uh, ports, etc. Those endpoint devices, our application devices, all the applications like SAP, Oracle, customized application. These applications run on some operating systems and database, so the security of those, and also they, since they all are connected over an intranet and internet, so those network devices, and of course the physical aspects of securing various information and data. So scope of an audit will cover all of this and would require us to being strategic, secure, vigilant, and resilient, and preventing and detecting controls and being able to recover from various types of threats which could arise from a nation state or from a cyber criminal or hacktivist or from inside or some and substandard product. Now it is extremely important for us to understand what type of cyber threats actually come. So some of the very, very common like threat which is there and which is the most prominent in the current day world is a phishing attack, where people just try to get the information or try to lure the customer or the person who is going by just sending them mails which look like a real mail and ask them to provide certain information, which could be their personal information, it could be their information which enables them to understand and then get the information so that they can penetrate into the systems of the organization. So they generally target unaware employees, unaware various types of suppliers who are connecting to the applications. Sometimes they target the people who are processing financial information or processing payments, etc., so that they can get the payment like transferred. So these types of frauds, etc., are very much common. The whole idea of phishing attack is primarily to get the information so that they can penetrate deeper and go and make convert this into a much larger impact. And typically, all phishing attacks which are there, some they move from phishing to malware and ransomware attack. Because once they get the information, then they start like, and they get the user ID and password, then they start putting through, they get into the system and the malwares are then put, and then one day suddenly after like all the system informations are captured and the details are captured, then the systems are encrypted and the company experiences the ransomware attack. Many very, very common like of them is also a web attack or DOS attack, wherein huge traffic is there and the system becomes unavailable. Another very common attack which is there in the current day world is the third party list. When some third party service provider cloud services we are using, or we are using some third parties tools, or we are using some suppliers. So from their side, the cyber risk sometimes come, because those people, although we have all the controls in our environment, but when we connect to these third party softwares or to the people and all, those people may not have equivalent level of control. So from there, the risk comes. And another very common cyber attack is the identity threat. It's to the organization and it's to the individual also. And we have seen this identity theft impacting every part of the every strata of the people, including the Prime Minister of India. So that is the type of it like thing wherein the Twitter accounts and all are actually taken things. So these types of thefts are very common nowadays. Another very important and the common threat is the data leakage, wherein the companies are data through either malware or through phishing attack or through a third party risk. The data is sensitive data is leaked, and that data is then sold in the dark web. And or when these any of these data are sold, you see what happens is when you get some data, then you go do a phishing attack based on that. You get more data, right? Then you correlate and then you can put a malware attack. That is why every organization nowadays is it at a very high risk of malware is at a very high risk of ransomware attack, and we should be aware of it and take enough measures to keep on taking our backups, to keep on taking our own mechanisms, so that if something happens, we are able to recover from these types of things. And if you look at it, like below, we see some of the boxes, like these are the scope of the cyber security areas. One is looking at the framework. We can audit the framework of cyber security. We can see what type of whether it's a NIST framework or COBIT and how they have implemented. We can look at the and do a health check assessment adopting that framework to give a understanding of where the organization stands on the cyber risk side. The second important aspect is the asset management. See, the starting point of any organization is cyber risk management is to understand what are the key assets which they are holding, where the data is, where the information is, what are the critical things which needs to be protected. So, and understanding what the crown jewels are. So, mapping the data, going through the data journey, that is another very important area which needs to be covered as a part of it, because typically attack is to get the data. Typically the attack is to get the information to help or to get to penetrate from that information certain frauds, right? To get the money by doing those types of frauds. So first step is to understand how the assets are being identified, how they are controlled, what is the confidentiality, integrity, and availability aspects of the assets, where are they stored, what is the importance of that thing, and then what type of controls we have on those types of assets. So that is another very important aspect of cyber security audit. Then third party risk. This is another a scope domain where we are, because nowadays if you look at it, everybody is using some other cloud. We are hosting on our mailing systems on cloud. Even as a chartered accountant, we use Gmails, we use various types of outlooks, etc. We are using softwares through which we are processing our client returns, etc. Right? So all these are third party softwares which we are using, right? When we are using these softwares and we are sharing the information, uploading the data on those information, there is a lot of data which is getting shared, right? And which is a confidential data, which is a very sensitive data also, certain case, because it is a data where you are putting the name, the date of birth, the address, the various types of bank account details, etc. So whether those products are actually secured or not, whether they have enough controls to ensure the security and privacy of the information, how we are making sure that we are not those informations are not getting leaked, and we are not source of providing and for this information which is can be subject to risk, right? So having that type of framework, what type of controls are there to ensure the confidentiality, to ensure the data is actually integrity is maintained, to ensure that data is available, right? That is an area which can be considered as an area of audit, and making sure that those controls are implemented. and auditing them and providing report on the same. Then we are connecting to various applications, right, through an APIs, integrators, etc. Now making sure those APIs, etc., are working well. Exchange of data is fine. There is no loss of integrity. The access to the application is restricted. The various types of changes which happens in the applications are as per the approval. Then with the mechanisms of a baseline security, right? How the securities are at the time when we are putting the systems, right? Whether the default IDs are changed, whether the default passwords are changed, whether the mechanisms are there to ensure we are able to recover in case there are certain frauds, etc. Right? So that is another area which needs to be looked at. Then security monitoring, like how we are monitoring that they are, if something is unusual or there is a lot of traffic from particular region or particular country or from a particular source or from a particular IP, are we able to identify that and restrict and curtail that type of thing? What type of our firewall systems we are having? What types of monitoring we are having on those things? That is another area for scope. Then mechanisms of data protections, how we classify the data. We first of all identify and then classify and then which data needs to be protected, data needs to be encrypted, which data needs to be prevented from being copied, which data needs to be not shared with any people, what type of mechanism we have to anonymize the data, how we are making sure that nobody is getting is getting access to a data which is very very sensitive and needs to be only with a limited number of people. So having review of those controls, etc., is another area of scope of cyber audit. Then incident management. What mechanisms we have if something to identify, right? What we have seen is in every incident is being notified. Biggest of biggest cyber threats they come to notice when somebody tweets on the Twitter, right? Why can't does the company have no mechanism to identify it on its own? What type of mechanisms company have to identify these types of incident? How do they understand whether it's an incident or whether it's not an incident? How do they respond to these types of things? How do they restrict it? How do they recover from it? What are the lessons they learn and then implement and make their environment more secure? So this is another area where an auditor can audit. Then our software development life cycle, because of substandard product brings lot of risk to the organization, specifically when we are getting it developed from some other person, or whether the developers who are developing, if they are not secured, knowing secure coding principles, etc. So they may implement with all the functionality well, but these functionalities could be compromised and the company could be exposed to huge risk because of the weaknesses in the security side of this thing. And also nowadays, if you look at it, every person is very much concerned about the privacy, right? They want their information to be private, and the trust of the organization is lost if their information is lost, right? So how we are making sure that at least the personally identifiable information is clearly marked, it is clearly masked, nobody can view it, it is encrypted, it is anonymized, nobody can copy it, nobody can share it without the permission, and also if their customer wants, it should be deleted or returned back. So these type of mechanism needs to be developed while we are coding. So privacy by design is what the company needs to think, and that is as another area which as an auditor we can audit. Then network security. This is a old area which people have been mostly cyber security. When we say cyber security, people say it's a firewall, it's a vulnerability assessment, penetration testing, but it also covers various types of aspects of connectivity to the ingress and the egress to the cloud environment. So that needs to be also covered. Then what type of mechanisms we have on the on the identifying on an like automated basis, on intelligent basis, and that there is a risk, and then protecting it. For instance, if somebody is trying to get into from an ID to an ID from a location where generally people are not looking, so whether the systems are intelligent enough to protect and block that like thing, and first taken permission and have a dual mechanism. So those types of like thing, what type of advanced protection technologies the companies have to understand that a particular is a cyber threat, and by itself design and define those controls so that they are prevented and detected. Then endpoint security, how we are securing that the entire endpoints which are connected, they are actually connecting to the right channel, whether they are really secure, the data within it is not like are they having enough mechanism like multi-factor so that there is no compromise which can happen on those devices, because a lot of information is stored in the laptops, on the mobiles, on various types of like thing. So even the sensors like which are stored in the manufacturing plant, they have lot of information. They know, they have the entire flow of the production process. So what type of mechanisms we have to secure that no, the data within it is not compromised, the information within it is not compromised, the access to those endpoints is not compromised. So that is another important cyber scope area. Then the training and awareness of cyber security, because as I mentioned, the largest threat to the cyber security are insiders and the suppliers. So what mechanisms we have to train our people, our customers, our vendors, what type of mechanism we have to tell them that this could be a possibly a phishing attack, or the identity could be that is another area to audit. Then access management, how the access is given, how it's removed, how it is like changed, that is the area to be considered. There's phishing simulations where people are just like a phishing attack is done and they are asked to respond to it. And the physical and environmental security, these are the some of the areas which can be considered as a cyber security thing. Now, do you, after listening to it, like, don't you think the risk of the cyber thing is very high? I'm sure, like, all of you would agree that in the current environment, the risk of cyber security impact as well as the likelihood is very, very high. If it both the impact and the likelihood is that high, that means it's a very, very high risk area. And that is why in every annual report, you will see that cyber risk discussions are there. There is a risk identification of the same and the controls which are being defined. And why not? Because we have seen even the largest of largest organizations which have at like Microsoft and all, like which are such a big like, and they have so many mechanisms of controls, and they are very, very robust on the side, on the security side of it. They all have also been compromised. So then what to think of any other company? So there have been breaches, and there have been a very, very large breaches. Why this is there? Because there is a huge sophistication of the way in which the attacks are done. And also the second reason is that because most of these attacks are geographical attack, they are across the geographical region. The regulatory, like, because although the regulations do exist, the law do exist, but bringing them to justice is very, very difficult task. And therefore, we are seeing so many breaches happening, even the largest of largest organizations. We look at like Microsoft, like 65,000 entities, 111 countries, and 2.4 terabytes of data which was exposed. Okay? Such is the impacts, and it's like so many countries getting involved, so many people getting involved, so many amount of data getting involved. And same is true with every like organization, but bringing those to justice is the thing. So it is extremely important that we as an internal auditor bring this to the perspective to cover that as a part of our internal audit, like risk assessment, bring it to the board agenda, ensure that our risk management do cover this as a risky risk, have it included in the internal audit plan. Um, And we must understand that cyber risk is not only IT risk, it is it is impacting every business function. So all the business head needs to like if it's their department, their function, although IT is enabler, but it impacts them, right? So all of them should be jointly the owner of it. And we cannot have one standardized approach for everything, right? It within the company also, the risk, you need to have a proper risk assessment and for various functions, various departments, and then define controls based on the asset register of each functions and department. So standardized approach may not fit all of them. And also the internal auditors need to upskill themselves. They need to be aware and we need to have the skills to perform these types of things, cyber risk assessment, and to do these types of audits. So that these are some of the questions which we should be aware of, and we should have an answer also for the same. And one of the very, very important elements as an internal auditor is to first of all bring the awareness. Second is to make sure that we have that as a part of a plan. Third is to have the skill set to deliver that as a part of our thing. Now let us discuss some of the illustrative like risk and controls on the cyber security side of it. So when we talk about, like, we started with the framework, right, and the governance part of it, it is a foundation. Like if you the company have a very, very good like mechanism to make sure that it comes, the IT risk, the cyber risk comes as a part of the every initiative, because see, every company now is a tech company. If finance, like banks, they are tech, right? Fintech, right? Health tech, agri tech. When every company is a tech company, every company is moving to be a tech company, then definitely the IT team needs to be part of the key stakeholder, right? Then the entire thing should be aligned to the strategic goal of the thing. IT should be part of every decision making. The risk on the side of cyber security should be part of the risk management mechanism. The values which are coming from the tech should also consider the risk which are arising from the cyber security, and how the KPIs of those are going to be measured. What mechanisms we will have to ensure that we are achieving the values what were envisaged, and we are also like making sure that we are building trust by not losing the data. We are not making any mistakes in terms of not being secure, not being ensuring that we have enough mechanism to prevent the loss of the information which is available with us. So how we have, what mechanisms we have for performance management on the tech side of it, on the cyber security side of it. Do we have enough resources? See, the thing is, as of now, there's a huge scarcity of a tech resources. A good tech resource is a very difficult thing to find. There are a lot of people who are available, but a really good person is a very good difficult question to be answered. And and then within that tech person, having the cyber security awareness also is a very, very difficult like thing, right? So having a right set of people who understand both tech as well as cyber security and the business, and bringing all of that together is a very big challenge that the organizations are facing. So as an internal auditor, we need to audit this area of IT governance, strategy, and program management. Some of the controls which we can audit over here is to ensure that the companies like have a like there is a clear policies and procedures. The the investments are aligned to the business investment. They are proper IT organization structure with a clear roles and responsibility, including that of cyber security. People are given enough like time. It's not only the development, but also the security aspects which are being considered at when we are developing. There are mechanisms to ensure that the IT architecture is aligned to the business architecture. It's aligned to the requirements of the things. And the company is able to go and grow, and the service infrastructure and applications are very well defined and designed. So that is another aspect which companies need to be having. And as an internal auditor, this is one of the control which we can audit. Then how we are defining the governance, what mechanisms we have, what types of KPIs are there, how they are being measured, how they are being monitored. That is another area which an internal auditor can audit. Then many companies are outsourcing. The entire IT team is outsourced in IT team. The SAP support is outsourced, or various types of ERP development support are outsourced. Then in that case, how do we enter into contracting? Do we consider the security side of it, the privacy side of it? What are the mechanisms? Do we have a clear service level agreements, and how we are going to measure it? Are we making sure that there is a proper right to audit also? Because if we are outsourcing and there's no right to audit, we may be exposed to, nobody will come to know what actually they are doing, right? And are they clear ownerships defined, and the terms and conditions clearly provide that if something goes wrong, how the company is getting indemnified? Are we having mechanisms to ensure that the various parts of the assumptions which we have made while outsourcing, actually they are giving values to the organization? So these are some of the areas on the outsourcing side of it we can audit. Primarily the contracting, the confidentiality clause, how the access management needs to happen. In case some breaches happen, then how the company get indemnified. If they want to transfer from one service provider to another, how they will get it transferred, what type of escrow agreements they are there with respect to the same, if they are developing some source code, and whether we can get access to those things. That is another area as an internal auditor we can cover. And then what types of mechanisms we have on the control. Then so we can primarily cover them in the domains of sourcing, how we are making sure that we are doing a proper understanding of actual requirements and preparing proper governance and approval mechanism. Then due diligence of risks which are there. Then contracting part of it, whether we have a right to audit also. Various types of reports which have to be submitted for SLAs, KPI, man monitoring. Whether there is a periodic base of assessing, then whether we get SOC 1, SOC 2, or these types of report, independent auditor report. If there are issues, whether there are mechanism to track it and get it resolved, and for termination if they are thing. Then IT asset management, this is another a big area which we can audit. How do in this, what control we can see is how the asset inventory is managed. How do they inventorize and make sure everything is there in the risk register for those assets? How they identify which are the critical ones and then recover them in case something goes lost. So the auditor can cover these areas. They can look at the controls of how the inventories are being maintained, how the risk assessment is done, how the identification is done to the various types of things, what types of mechanism or monitoring are there. They can see whether the assets have a clear ownership or not, whether they have a clear identification of confidentiality, integrity, and availability, whether they are classified as sensitive, private, public, or various types of confidential mechanism. And then for each one of them, the controls have been laid down. So that is the area which one can cover. Then identity and access management. It covers the aspects of various types of access creation, modification, termination, how they are given, how they are modified if some changes happen, and if somebody leaves, whether the IDs get timely deactivated, and the monitoring of the access, how it happens. Then various types of mechanism of encryption of the data, how configuration, segregation of duty between various person who is initiating and approving. That is an area which one can cover as a part of a cyber security audit. Then change management, whether the changes goes through a proper patch updation. Do we have security and privacy by design? Whether the changes are properly designed, tested, and approved before they go into the public production environment. Whether they exist developer and migrator segregation. Whether we have a 3-tier architecture where there is a separate development, quality, and production environment. This is another area which can be covered at some of the controls which around this can be covered. Then some of the controls on IT operations could be on the controls on identification of sensitive data, confidential data, and based on that identification, putting data leakage and protection programs like encryption of data, like anonymization of data, restriction of them to copy, restriction on them to send on email, notifications if some confidential information is shared, authentications through a VPN or multi-factor authentications. Then backup procedures, controls on how the backups are taken, how whether they are restored, whether they are tested, or whether the resources are enough to ensure backup is completely taken or not. Then there could be a lot of interfaces which are working. So how we are ensuring those interfaces are getting completed, batch processing is completed. If there are some errors, they are being resolved on timely basis. Then the network security aspects of it, how they are being done, what type of trainings which are being provided, whether those training are completed by all, whether the people actually have understood or not by doing a phishing simulations. Then the disaster recovery simulations, the reports of disaster recovery, the report of problem incident management, various types of controls around the plans of business continuity and DR. So that can be another control area which could be covered. Then incident management. How do we record the incident? How we ensure that they are properly investigated, they are responded, a root cause analysis is done, and then if something goes wrong, how they are communicated, how the impact is identified and the impact is reduced to the maximum extent, then how we are making sure that there are processes for learning from it and taking a corrective action based on that. So controls around all these areas can be considered and be part of the cyber security. So when we do all these control review, there could be a lot of issues which we may identify. Some of the common issues which are there could be that IT assets are not protected, or password is not configured, or logs are not enabled, or VPN is not there, or the systems are not patched, or the data is not protected, like you have not classified the data. There are policy procedures which are not there, accesses are not restricted, antivirus is not updated, change mechanism is not followed, segregation of duty does not exist, or there is no encryption. So these types of common findings you may get. The importance of these findings is to go to the depth and find out what is the exact reason, and that is you have to ask question why 5 times to get into the root cause part of it. So if IT assets is not protected, you should ask them why it is not protected. The first answer you may say get is that there is no like tool which we have. But then you ask why don't you have a tool, like then they will say there is no budget which we have. Then you will get the question like is that budget and tool the only like thing, why is it not like there? Because they will say there's lack of awareness, people are not aware like why it is should be protected, and then you will ask why, then you will come to an answer that actually there is no ownership of the IT asset, nobody owns the information and data, and therefore no action has been taken on it, and therefore there is no such tool also because of it, and therefore there is no protection level around it. So when we ask why, and why 5 times, that is where we will get a root cause. And the idea of any audit is to get the root cause addressed. So all these things when you will do, you will find out that the answer to this is because of the lack of awareness, because of the lack of like ownership, because of the lack of well defined updated policies and procedures or commitment from the senior leadership on the various types of standardization, or the lack of like understanding of incorrect like contractual agreements. So we need to target on these root causes, and then based on the root cause analysis, provide our recommendations and get those things fixed. And that is where the companies can build a robust cyber security mechanism. And success of any internal auditor, as was spoken, is not on finding, but all to get the finding resolved, to get add value to the organization. So going to right root cause and providing resolution Based on that, and also getting it implemented from the management is the success of any cyber audit. So with this, I will end my session. If we have any questions, we can take it.
Thank you so much, ma'am, for contributing to our knowledge base. Cyber-related deliberations are really need of the hour, as each business and even each person come under its purview. Thank you so much, ma'am. We will take some questions later on after the third technical session. Now let's move ahead for third technical session on very awaited topic, internal audit, corporate governance, forensic audit, case studies. For this, I would like to introduce eminent speaker C.A. Premnath ji, a fellow chartered accountant, qualified DISA, FAFD, presently partner at Messrs. C. Ramachandram and Company, Hyderabad. Experience includes leading large and complex engagements for internal, external, and forensic audit of large manufacturing, infrastructure, software, PSU companies, handling bank audits at central statutory auditor, branch auditor, concurrent and revenue auditor, worked as reviewer and designer of standard operating procedure as a part of SAP implementation audits, conducting audits of internal financial controls of various PSUs, listed and large manufacturing entities, served ICIS peer reviewer, and as a technical reviewer in Financial Reporting Review Board of ICI. He is regular in addressing seminars at ICI, regular speaker on e-filing, XML, XBRL, audit under CBS, visiting faculty in GST departments, income tax, C&AG staff training Hyderabad, and many more likewise. Here I request Premnath sir to share few of his vast experiences on internal audit, corporate governance, forensic audit, case studies. Over to you, sir.
Thank you. Thank you very much for your exhaustive introduction, madam. I think my voice level is audible. Can confirm my voice level is audible.
Yes, it's audible, sir.
Okay, thank you. At the outset, I thank IASB for giving me one more opportunity to share my views on the internal audit, subject internal audit. I'm also privileged to be a part of speakers, well-known speakers like Madam Yukti Arora and then Ravindran sir. I thank IASB for giving me a space among the well-noted speakers. I'll just make my presentation through a formal presentation. So I say Dharmo Rakshati Rakshitaha, meaning comply with the ICI code. The code for us is Dharma. So I said, let's comply with the ICI code of conduct. The code will protect us. Equally, the other side. On one side, when I say Dharmo Rakshati Rakshitaha, meaning the code will protect when I comply, the same code will destroy me if I doesn't comply with it. And I'll show many examples as we move into this, taking the clue of Supreme Court or DC proceedings or whatever it is. So the slogan is again, I repeat, Dharmo Rakshati Rakshitaha. The code will protect professional and profession. So today's topic is on corporate governance, internal audit, and forensic audit. The theme with which I am moving is understand the layers of protection to the stakeholders from corporate scandals and design preventive controls and strengthen detective controls for early liquidation of the stakes when risk occurs. So I'm saying preventive controls. What are preventive controls? Like we all know the preventive controls well known about after the COVID 2019. Many preventive controls we have taken it. That is because its prevention is better than cure. So the world is evolving with more and more of preventive controls rather than wasting our time in detective procedures. So let's just see immediately the preventive controls. Latest example, which is reported, I think it is just 2-3 days back in the newspaper by the RBI, risk containment. RBI opens sandbox to 6 firms to test anti-fraud solutions. What are they? I'll just quickly read out. Cybertech solution RT360 real-time monitoring system provides comprehensive surveillance mechanism for monitoring transactions and events from loan accounts on a continuous and a real-time basis. Yes, this is a real preventive control. Then we have Credit Watch Informative Analytics, Credit Watch EWS, Early Warning of suppliers. Now, this is what is corporate governance. Meaning, there is no place. It should be a formal list. Yeah, formal system for procurement to pay, be it material or services, whatever it is. Procurement employee creates a fraudulent. This is how it's happening here. Enters information into the vendor master. It's happened here. Fraudulent vendors can be created. Shell non-existence can be created because significant segregation of duty lies at the heart of effective anti-fraud controls within the P2P, procurement to pay. 3 broad categories: cycle of procurement, receiving, and accounts payable, who are not strengthened. And that's what we see here: processing purchase requisitions, request quotations, process purchase orders, confirming goods and services received, process supplier invoices, process payables and payment. These mechanism is not in place, and hence we see here the mass 11% of the when you see here that 50% of the transport cost is going to the one vendor, major vendor, and there are no controls on it. Now, key KYC documentation. The KYC documentation here, PAN and GST not available in the vendor master. Internal auditor has not verified anything in this. Then when it comes to the forensic observation, PAN belongs to the proprietor, but stated in the agreement or sale or service agreement that is given to the transporter is saying firm, whereas the PAN is saying that it is a proprietor, meaning this is one biggest issue which internal auditor has not covered into it. Then rate contract decisions. Rate decided by the branch manager, not entered in SAP. Then internal auditor has not verified it. Then by branch manager without any discussion on fair market value, meaning the rate is not finalized based on the market value. Then the service order, this is the biggest flaw again here. The service order is on a letterhead without standard format approved by a legal team, meaning whatever the vendor comes out with a agreement, the same is signed and stamped by the branch manager. And the branch manager doesn't have an authority and not even defined whether a branch manager has an authority to enter into a contract is not defined, is there is no policy as to who has to enter into it. Corporate governance failure here, because there is no standard operating procedure. Internal auditor has not verified, no observation made on the system of service orders. Then the forensic auditor says not in formal acceptable agreement format for legal binding, like where the case has to be decided, jurisdiction, how long, how do you renew, what is the time frame within which this contract will end, principle of natural justice, nothing, no formal agreement is made into it. This is a lacuna. This is the reason is all these things is coming from the failure in the corporate governance. Next, execution system. Look at the execution system based on the sale advice from HO, Chennai branch logistics in charge shall arrange for vehicles as per the destination and load requirements from empaneled transporter who has entered into a rate contract. So internal auditor has not verified what kind of system it goes on. Then if you look at the forensic auditor is saying preference is always given to the transporter involved in the fraud. No questions were asked here again. Next, second part is transporter arranges vehicles to godowns and loading will be done. Outward register is maintained with date, invoice, party. All this time of loading will be mentioned. Security agency is independent. Security agency maintains inward register, all these things. But internal auditor again has not verified all these issues with respect to the transport. Now, forensic auditor says registers not properly maintained. In some entries, in some cases, entries were tampered, and in some cases, serially not numbered, and in some registers were missing. And again, there is no policy procedure as to how long these registers to be maintained. There is no policy procedures who can tamper it, who can edit it, how it has to be edited, whether this has to be taken as a Xerox, sent to the head office for processing. No standard operating procedures defined here. And next, loading process and vehicle number will be captured by surveillance camera, which is kept at the entrance of the godown. Internal auditor not observed. But the biggest lacuna here is backup of recording is not saved, and hence this could not be produced as an evidence. Moreover, there is no policy, procedure, rules, methods like Madam Yukti Arora was talking about. So many controls on information technology. Now, nothing is specified as to how long these recordings needs to be saved. And Madam was also talking about, everyone today talks about the digitized. This company is also fully digitized, but no rules on it. And that's an opportunity for the chartered accountants to exploit that area for consulting and audit areas. Next, again, transporter submits monthly invoice to the company Chennai branch while containing all these informations, vehicle, customer name, kilometers, amount, and so on and so on. Now, internal auditor, what the internal auditor has done is internal auditor verified only the total bill amount with the ledger amount, meaning he has put a tick on the bill and he has put a tick on the ledger account. Nothing else has been done. Now, what forensic auditor observed is excess billing done with the help of branch manager, attracting the provisions of Indian Penal Code section 37. I'll give the list of all these IPC here. I just mentioned here various cases booked on it, but nothing was approved because of the documentation problems here. Okay, now coming back here, then let us see the transporter is responsible to collect the acknowledgement from the customer on invoice and DC as a proof of delivery. Internal auditor has not verified, no observation on the system. And forensic auditor has said, forensic auditor has observed in certain cases, the customers have directly picked the material for which transporter has billed it extra. More than that, transporter invoice will be verified by the branch manager, accounts officer, approved by the branch. Such invoice copies as approved by the branch manager, sent to the HO by a scanned copy for payment. Head office shall process the payment, release the payment directly to the transporter without further inquiry or any further processes. Meaning, here the internal auditor has not verified the total, has only verified the total bill amount with the ledger amount and not verified the GST compliances. Forensic auditor observed that GST is charged by the transporter at 18 instead of 12. Moreover, GST is not paid by the, he has collected the GST with the bills, he has not paid it, and hence not paid to the vendor has not paid it to the government, and hence it's not available in the 2A or 2B. Then because he has not paid it continuously, the GST authorities have cancelled the vendor's registration and blocked for non-compliance, and this is not known to the company till forensic auditor has brought to the notice of it. And that's how the systems are working in the company. Then other forensic auditors' observations are certain invoices, goods collected by the party for which transporter has claimed to have been paid, have been delivered. Meaning, there is no system to verify who has, there is no system in the company to correlate invoice wise whether it is to pay or freight on board or X factory. The invoices are not linked with the transporter invoices, and that's the way in which SAP is configured. Though it is an SAP, the SAP sales invoices and the logistics data is not correlated, is not configured, and that is being exploited here. That is again a corporate governance issue. Transporter and approved the bills for a rate over and above the agreed rate. Then again, the SAP is not configured with the agreed rates. The moment that's what I said here when we have come into, when we have seen the process here. When we have seen the process here, the goods and services conforming to the service receipts and processing the supplier's invoice, purchase orders or the service orders are not verified. The rate contract is not verified by the system when the invoices are placed. Moreover, there is no system of authorizing the quality or the terms and conditions. And that's what has happened here also. And branch manager has grossly misused, falsified the position with an intention to get wrongful gain from the transporter by approving false claims of labor toll charges without even examining the relevant supporting documents for claims made by the transporter. All these things could have been configured in the system, but it's not been done. The branch manager, by colluding with the transporter, has allowed the transporter to claim transportation charges beyond normal average rate. Again, the company doesn't have a system of getting the market value, getting the fair market value before authorizing it. There is no system. Branch manager, by colluding transporter, has allowed transporter to claim transportation charges beyond the normal number of kilometers. Meaning, if from Chennai to Bangalore is, say, for example, 200 kilometers, they are charging around 400 kilometers. Meaning, when the forensic auditor has verified the distances, in most of the cases, the kilometers charged are more than the usual kilometers, meaning that there is no system to verify how much he can deviate. The branch manager, by colluding with the transporter, has allowed the transporter for billing excess number of kilometers while transporting goods in a single vehicle for dispatches in multiple locations. These products, the products have the same vehicle goes to the multiple dispatches, meaning multiple supplier, multiple vendors. The same vehicle goes to the multiple vendors with multiple invoices, whereas the transporter has raised invoice for every vendor, for every dispatch, though it is going in single vehicle, he has charged multiple. Meaning the SAP is not configured with the logistics operations, and these are all corporate governance issues. And as I have stated, when the forensic auditor has presented all these issues, what happened? Well, let's see here. There is another case also in the same company again, wherein I said the accounts manager has misused his wife's name. So what happened there is the accounts manager double signatory was too busy, and the checks were previously signed and loose leaflets were with the accused without any control. A red flagging of check amount misappropriated was not highlighted by the vendors. In the process of forensic, when this has happened, the accused was video record. With the video recording, they made the accused to accept. But this is not accepted by the court, saying that you have done all these things in the company premises. You have done all these things in the company premises. So this is a legal look. Probably you could have influenced him, and principle of natural justice was not followed in the forensic operations. Even the forensic auditor has not done it in a right way. The accused was not served notice regarding the forensic audit was done, and then they have filed the case, but the case failed because the accused was not served a notice, and this is a principle of natural justice was not followed. Key and ward records were not properly maintained. Transporter case visuals of CC camera was not preserved. Inward and outward registers was tampered. They should be at the key and control of complainant company. This was not there. Then contract between the transporter and company was devoid of merit and lacked due jurisdiction. This was not mentioned in the forensic. Also, the law of contract was not properly executed. Then the controls that the company should have before releasing the payment was not duly followed, and the suggestions of forensic audit was also not done. Board minutes were not updated for a long time. Whenever the forensic auditor wants to, or the legal team wants to file some case and present before the judges, there was an inordinate delay because of the board procedures in the company, meaning the corporate governance mechanism is not in place. This is about the case. Let's just, considering this case, let's move into the presentation. Let me just take you now. We'll start debating, we'll start discussing one by one now. Now, this is where we have deviated. Now look at this corporate governance issues. The objectives, policies, and procedures. Objectives, policies, and procedures. Policies comes out of objectives. Procedures comes out of policies. Procedures are in the form of rules and methods. So when objectives are good, policies are good, then the procedures are good. And this happens only when the company is ethical, cultural, company is with good family background, with a corporate governance, good corporate governance, values. And if all this happens, then there is a transparency in the business policies, procedures, and rules. Accountability is also there because it's an ethical company. Meaning, if the corporate is ethical, with culture, with good family background and corporate governance, automatically the objectives, policies, procedures, rules, and methods will be reflected in the transaction regarding bookkeeping, summation, classification, and so on and so on. Meaning, if this is bad, if ethical culture is not there, corporate governance is not there, then it will get immediately impacted on the transactions regarding bookkeeping, classification. That's what we have seen in this present case now. Because the ethical corporate culture is not followed properly, it has reflected on the way in which the business is carried out and the way in which the recordings or transactions are recorded, the way in which the financials are made. And if this is good, and as we have listened to Madam Yuki Arora, we have seen about the information technology. Today, there is no company without information technology. Without digital presence, there is no company today. And that information systems, there are applications, system admin, networking, capacity planning, automation, system security log, disaster recovery management, data center management, whatnot. All these things can function very well only with the ethical, cultural, family background. Moreover, all these things will happen when environmental, legal system, political system, cultural system, economic, outside the company, if all these things are good, automatically it will impact. Okay. Now, our role as a chartered accountant is more on advising the corporates on ethical corporate governance and IT and recording. So, as I've stated in my opening remarks, I was more on to the detective systems. We have seen the forensic auditors' detective mechanisms, and all should have been a part of preventive, meaning the controls are preventive, detective, and corrective and compensating. So why controls? Controls are for prevention or detection of fraud or error, or towards the compliance and protection of assets. So what controls? As I've said already, prevention is better than cure. If prevention fails, immediately it's the detective procedures. Then it is corrective and then compensative. And these controls can be manual or system based. In the present case, we have seen it is, though SAP is used, though SAP can be configured, with now we have seen the RBI coming out with so many detective mechanism on site, real-time preventive systems we have seen, system-based. That's the way in which the business is moving, but still many corporates are yet to come into it, meaning whether corporates themselves will come out with system-based preventive controls, or should there again be one law or a regulation wherein it says every company should have a system-based preventive. I think as more and more frauds, probably we think we are moving into government putting more rules and regulations on mandating this. There should be a system-based. Okay. Till such time, whose baby is this? Shareholder or board of directors or chairman or managing director or CFO or CEO or management or staff or internal auditor? Whoever it is, it ultimately boils down to the chartered accountant, be it as a statutory auditor or as a forensic auditor or as an internal auditor. Keeping this in mind, if corporate governance is a science, there should be a cause and effect for ethical business. As we have seen now, what is the cause and effect? What is the science or what is the cause and effect for ethical business? It is ethical, cultural, family background, value-based corporate governance, transparency and accountability will lead to very good objectives, policies, procedures, rules and methods. And that will put in place the information systems into high degree of cyber security, as what Madam Arora was talking about. And that will automatically get, if ethical business family background is a cause and effect, then if this is a cause, ethical cultural family background is a cause, then the effect will be on very good transaction regarding bookkeeping, true and fair presentation, reporting, and so on and so on. Now, there are risks at every node. There are risks at every node when coming from manager to the stakeholder, competitors and company, government and company and all. These risks can happen. I'm not spending much time here as it is well known to us. For example, insider dealing and related party transactions, it impacts with owners and managers and the stakeholders. Intellectual property right and employee bribe kind of risks occur between competitors and companies. Government and company tax evasion, and so on and so on. So when all these risks at every node, at every transaction level, then what can prevent that is only an ethical. Then, yes, there are layers of protection, what we have understood. The first layer, as we have understood, is the corporate governance with ethical tone at top, well-established standard operating procedures. We have seen a case law now wherein there are no standard operating procedures. Because standard operating procedures are not there, those are not converted into an internal controls. And if this layer fails, the responsibility is shouldered on the internal audit or statutory audit or the forensic auditor. In this internal auditors layer, there should be a scientific scope definition, wherein we have just now seen in this case, the scope is not defined. The internal auditor was only busy in ticking with the ledger and the bills, and he has not gone in depth into various aspects of it as defined by the standards, what internal audit standards or standards on auditing. I'll just cover in a few minutes when we go into that area, depending on the time again. Then independent execution as per the standards and professional skepticism. In an internal audit, as there should be a culture in corporate governance, tone at top, and well-established SOP, internal auditor should also have a well-defined scientific scope with independent execution as per standards. Professional skepticism, we have seen in the present case where professional skepticism is missing when majority of the bills are processed by or given to one single transporter, when the invoice mechanism in the SAP and the logistics mechanism in the SAP is not integrated, that itself is showing that there can be a material misstatement, but the internal auditor has not lived up to the expectations as per the professional skepticism. There were various things that the rate is different, rate is changing from one vendor to the another vendor. Even if the logistics bills are down or extracted into an Excel, a simple Excel formulas could have highlighted these lacunas, but these processes as defined in SA 520 analytical procedures was not carried out. Okay, discussion points without dilution is one layer. Audit committee seriousness in implementing valid suggestions, action taken reports these are the layers which will protect the stakeholders' money. Then again, statutory audit is another layer where independent execution as per standards, audit committee seriousness in evaluating the auditor's performance. Then the last layer to protect the stakeholders is forensic audit. Independent execution as per standards, audit committee seriousness, competence of legal team. We have seen the forensic audit or the company has made the accused to sit in the company, give a declaration under a camera recording without, and even the forensic reports are not circulated with a legal notice. The principle of natural justice is not followed by the forensic auditor, meaning that the forensic auditor lacks the sense of legal procedures. Then evidence gathered was not sufficient, enforceable contracts, effective coordination among various departments in legal adjudication. That's what I said when the legal team wanted to file a case, for everything they needs to go to the board of directors to get resolutions. But these resolutions were not in place, and this is one failure, meaning the layers of protection is corporate governance, internal audit, statutory, and forensic audit. We have seen in the present case, that all things have failed and company has lost, meaning that the layers of protection is not protecting because those are ineffectively structured. And yes, all along, I said the forensic audit, internal audit, or statutory or the corporate governance should not be looked at three different silos. So my personal opinion here, forensic audit is an accounting service generally involve application of special skills in auditing, accounting, quantitative methods, finance specific area of law, information, computer technology, research, investigation skills to collate, analyze, evaluate evidential matter, which is in the forensic area called evidence. Yes, I'm stressing here the word evidence because SA 500 series in both from the standards on auditing and the internal auditing standards has well laid down the principles of evidence. What is evidence is very well defined, and that's what even the forensic auditor is also looking at. Meaning, this is where I'm saying the forensic audit, the statutory audit, and the internal audit are converging at a place called evidence. When the forensic auditor is looking into an evidence, the same evidence, meaning of the evidence which is given here is more or less the evidence meaning which is given in the Evidence Act. So in what way we are converging with the forensic auditor? In what is a thin line of difference? Is there a thin line of difference? First of all, there is an increasing expectations from the stakeholders to remove the difference between forensic audit and statutory audit. That's what that's what the today ED or CBI, or for that matter NEFRA or special SFIO, or so many authorities are questioning chartered accountants why you have not carried out all these processes, though all these processes are very well documented in the standards. I'll come back to those words which I'll come back to the standards and procedures laid down in the statutory audit or internal audit standards, which are almost similar to the forensic auditor's procedures. So the CAs are expert with special skills. I am not saying CAs are experts. I am not saying this. The Supreme Court accepted in many judgments that the CAs are experts. So as per ICAI, standards on auditing, standards on quality control, code of ethics to comply with ethical standards, professional standards, and technical standards. And SA 520 is an analytical procedure. What analytical procedure are we talking about? What analytical procedure this internal auditor has not carried out? Let me just take you to simple analytics that the auditor could have, that either the statutory auditor or the internal auditor could have done. The rule is same and different, meaning the same supplier, same product, price is different. Like we have seen in the transport fraud also, we have seen the same supplier for the same distance charging different rates, and this will definitely affect price manipulations and genuineness of purchases, and which will lead to material mistake. Now, what is that same I'm saying? When this same is happening, the policy or procedure should be to check for the authorizations and delegation of power, which is not there in the company. If authorizations and delegation power is not there, again, this is resulting into manipulations, material misstatement. What is same I'm saying? Same address, same phone number, same email ID, but the supplier or customer is different. Again, the another rule is same, different, meaning same product, different supplier, different prices, same product, same distance. A different supplier is giving a different price. PAN number and GSTN number is different, but the supplier and customer name and supplier, customer name or employee name is same, but PAN and GSTN numbers are different. Again, the another rule, same and same. Duplicate customers, duplicate suppliers, duplicate employees, duplicate product code. And what analysis SA 520 is asking about? It is talking about it is measured as a ratio of largest number to the second largest number given set, like electricity expense variance, travel expense variance. If transport cost is increasing, is the sales is increasing? Is the sales is same, the transport expenditure is same? Selling and distribution, inquire the high difference. Then gap, missing serial numbers, missing product code, missing customer code, employee code, check numbers, data pattern analysis, same address, same email, same invoice, holidays, serial bank account numbers, rounding of amounts, Benford law, identification of abnormal distribution of transactions, account balances running into opposite polarity, that is assets in credit balance, income in debit balance, horizontal and vertical analysis, supply or sales, debit or credit in the concentrated parties, concentration analysis, that is supplies are concentrated with one transporter, sales are with one transporter, debit and credit only with one particular parties, favoritism, priorities, certain accounts, certain vendors are paid in priority. This has happened in a government company we have seen. One particular company which is relative of one of the biggest politician, if his bills comes, which is cleared, and the other bills are kept in queue, and with the related party transactions, though rate is same, but high priority is given in clearing those bills, high priority is given in making advances and payments, favoritism, extreme large number of large and small transactions, abnormal transactions, and the ratio analysis, whatnot. Of course, these are all made now a part of Schedule 3, but so many analysis. I'm not saying that I have to do, I'm not saying you should do all these things. I'm only saying that SA 520 says that all these transactions, all these things has to be done. I'm not saying that you do it manually. I'm saying that today the systems are well designed. You just dump the total day book, total ledger into it. All these calculations come out in a fraction of a second. Now, whether the auditor has carried out all these things, I'm talking about here. Now, if it's not that the chartered accountant has to carry out analytical review procedures, I'm not saying the chartered accountant has to carry out the analytical procedures as a part of detective mechanism. Believe it. I hope you all accept that the auditor's procedures are detective procedures, but not preventive procedures. Come back to the RBI's initiative, what we have discussed here. The RBI's initiatives here is more of preventive, and this is not auditor's job here. It is not that the ICAI is saying that, a company, you do it. It's not that. It's the ICAI is not saying, auditor, you do all these things. Now the regulator is saying, a business, you do all these things. Meaning, this is what I'm saying, the preventive, the detective procedures are forming part of preventive mechanism. This is an opportunity. I keep saying this again. This is a fantastic opportunity coming to the chartered accountants. We need to take these kind of initiatives to the corporate world with technology, and that's where you will progress. Meaning, what I'm saying here is the forensic auditor also doing the same after the fraud has happened, but after 3-4 years. But very near to the transactions is internal audit, and very near to the transaction is a statutory auditor. The statutory auditor should have carried out all these procedures, which after the fraud is notified, the forensic auditor is doing it. Meaning that we are very near to the transaction. The space-time gap between the transaction and the audit, the transaction and the verification is very small. Gap is thin. And that is at that time, the same procedures, what forensic auditor is carrying out, the internal or statutory auditor has to carry out as per the section 520, SA 520. And SA 315, study of controls, environment. And we have seen the processes in the transport. None of the procedures were in place, meaning that the SA 315 study, internal financial controls, have failed. If it has failed, then what happened to the SA 700 series of giving an opinion, wherein controls, complete breakdown of control, the auditor should have expressed disclaimer or a negative, or a disclaimer should have been, I am unable to express because sufficient appropriate evidence is not gathered as per SA 500, wherein the forensic auditor is also concentrating more on the evidence, and we are also concentrating as per SA 500 series of evidence. And we have every right to approach SA 620 expert opinions where if I'm not able to understand, meaning I'm not saying all these things. Today, every stakeholder is expecting there should not be a difference between forensic and internal audit. And that's the reason why the reportings, be it CARO reporting, be it Schedule 3 reporting, be it any reporting, is getting the difference between the theoretical difference between forensic audit and statutory audit or internal audit is becoming thin and thin, because the regulators are trying to come into a different form because of the increasing expectations from the stakeholders. So this is what we have discussed here. So I've said that internal controls, what are internal controls and all, I'll just quickly jump into. So what I'm saying is internal controls are essentially risk mitigation steps taken to strengthen organization systems. What organization systems? Procurement to pay, order to cash, WBS element, which is completely ignored in most of the companies. We have seen in Supreme Court judgment on one of the big case where the loans were diverted. Then material management, the inventory management, supply chain management, fixed assets, FICO, all these controls. Then internal controls, risk mitigation is internal financial control, that is preventive, detective, and corrective compensating. When IC mitigate operational risk, that is operational controls. When IC is an automated environment, that is what we have just now listened to Yukti Arora madam. So these are all the areas for a chartered accountant, which is well covered by madam. So preventive detective, we have talked about it, what an internal audit, the responsibility of the companies under internal audit. Section 134, for listed companies, directors' responsibility statement, they say we are, yes, responsible for it. Section 143 of the Act, where auditor needs to give a certificate on this. Then we have talked about even this, these are the procedures. Then role of internal auditor, audit approach, key task, deliverable, prepare, planning. We have seen in the present case, the auditor doesn't have a planning at all, doesn't have a preparation, and the execution we have seen, it has not highlighted the fraud, what has happened. Coming back, this is the procedure. I was talking about internal audit standards and auditing standards. Management gives the assertion that it is existing, completeness, valuation, rights, obligations, and all. The auditor should have carried out the risk of material misstatement with SA 315. He has to comply with all these standards. All these standards complying is called as an audit test, with compliance test and substantive. Substantive is test of details and test of standard, test of controls. With analytical procedures, we have seen in the present case, all this has failed. And hence there is no discussion with those charged with the governance. So actual procedure is you need to comply. The auditor has nowhere documented in the present case. Okay. So compliance, SA 315, we have seen they have not followed it. Then understanding the business. Understand the environment, SAP, the configuration between the sales system, cash to order to cash, and logistics. Both the systems are not configured. He has not understood the material misstatement. Then he has not understood the business. Laws and regulations governing the business, what happens to the GST, whether it is 18%, 12%, 5%, RCM, is not understood. He has not complied with the controls. So major things are operated in ERP and other standalone, but this is not investigated or understood by the internal auditor or the statutory auditor. Now, internal auditor, I just said a small, it should have been the auditor should have said that vendors related identification, selection, sources, ordering, advance, receivable, all these things are not in place. He should have no clear laid down policies. He should have stated it. Vendor management, vendor master maintenance, add, active, deactive, delimit, change in vendor master, he should have highlighted it. Contract management, tendering process, delegation, budgeting, procurement costing, vendor payment accounting, includes measuring, recording, posting, accounting, reporting, presenting, vendor related advances, set off payment, debit, credit, all these policies he should have pointed out. Root cause is what? Root cause is absence of specific, customized, clearly demarked business policies. Standard operating procedure. This is corporate governance failure. Absence of formal company level policies. Again, corporate failure here. So risk is potential monetary loss, which we have seen it has occurred. A recommendation, company should have developed and implemented. Is it not in place? The SAP has all these systems. Even Tally has all these places. It's high time that we need to have a mind of corporate forensic audit with corporate governance and so on. Then role of internal auditor. Okay, initially, if SAP is fully, if the system is fully implemented, verify the exceptional reporting. That's what we have listened to Madam Yukti Arora's presentation. If system is fully implemented, what we have listened from the madam can be completely followed. If it is partially implemented, perform validations using MS reports in Excel. Perform reconciliations, subledgers to TB. Check whether alerts are properly made in case of deviations if it is partially implemented. If it is not at all implemented, then there is full lot of manual vouching, verification to be performed, Excel techniques, suggest management to implement suitable ERPs. Meaning, at every level, internal auditor has a role to play. At every level, internal auditor can create value. At every level, we can create value addition, and this is what we need to exploit as an internal auditor. Now, internal auditor role on improving organization's efficiency. Okay, coming back to the forensic related, let me just cover and then we'll come back to this now. IPC sections, I said. Now, in case of the reason why I'm talking about IPC sections here is, as I'm saying that the forensic audit, internal audit, and corporate governance are not three different silos. But today we are expected to behave in a hybrid model. So the auditor needs to understand the IPC sections also, so that he can document, he can give value addition in terms of contract terms, so that we can bind the vendors. So section 411, I'm saying majority of the financial frauds get attracted with all these sections. Though this session doesn't talk about it, I'm not going in depth into it. 411, 418, cheating with knowledge, 419, punishment for cheating impersonation, 420, cheating dishonestly, 421, fraudulently removing, 422, dishonest, fraudulently preventing, 423, execution of deed of transfer or containing false statements, 424, 471, 472, 473, and so on and so on. Remember, most of these sections find its place in Prevention of Money Laundering Act, meaning if a chartered accountant who is well connected and who is more close to the corporates related as an internal audit or statutory audit, if the documents or the contracts are well negotiated and structured with these things, I think the liquidation of the risk amount is very easy, because the auditor who is well associated with the corporates in any other form, in any form be it, because he lacks this, the contract terms are not properly read, and that is giving more loss to the corporates. And if you are able to structure the contracts with knowledge of these acts, probably the liquidation of risk amount becomes very easy. So what we were talking about, early warning signals. We have seen in this RBI is talking about a product called early warning signals. Now RBI has come out with an early warning signals. And moreover, it is talking about the early warning signals and fraud identification, looking at the data across private and public and private data sources to uncover early warning troubles through a system. Now, RBI has come out with early warning signals for it. Now, most of the places you can see that LC issued for a 42 early warning signal number given in the RBI, a circular of 1/7/2015, related party transactions. How will auditor know about it? He has to use the private websites, meaning this is what RBI is saying, that there should be a tool to identify the private and public source data. How much of private and public data today? There are import and export processing, IDMPS, EDMPS, IceGate, Vahan, FRCA Online, MCA, GST, income tax, willful defaulters, credit rating, CIBIL, GST data, what not. This much of data today is publicly available, and we all know about AIS and FIS statements that are there, which is linked with 42 pieces of information is coming and sitting into one document. And 31st December, we were all very busy in rectifying the past, data, meaning what I'm saying here, what I'm trying to say here is we can link all those. We can link, meaning a chartered accountant can act being as an internal auditor, can act as a forensic auditor to improve the corporate governance with value-added services, because we have seen RBI coming out on the banks to, we have seen that the RBI is coming out on the banks to use these kind of tools. And probably in the days to come, before some regulator says, hey, corporates who are listed with 500 crores or who are listed with the top 500 corporates in BSE and NSE, you should also have these kind of tools. Before someone says, let us be ready with those kind of tools and give value addition to the corporates. And finally, what we have seen is SOPs not defined for vendor enrollment. No maker checker controls, transport bills not linked with the outward invoice. At the cost of repeating, I'm repeating again. At the cost of boring you, I'm just again recollecting what we have said. Transport rate contract per kilometer not defined. No transparent mechanism to handle vendor invoices. No SAP for transport selection, background verification, KYC process, master mandatory fields. No system of independent work certification agreed as per the work order. Payment process without ensuring compliance to work order. Authority responsibility matrix is not defined. That's what Madam was also talking about. Internal auditor scope was not defined. Internal auditor has not carried out the process study. Audit committee not evaluated the quality of professional services. Forensic audit report and legal team failed to liquidate damages because of poor documentary evidences. So various offenses under various acts, we have seen here that all these things are coming under anti-money. IBC process, Companies Act, I have not touched about all those. So what I'm saying is, officers or managers responsible for the relevant job or role may be considered as officer in default and shall include whole-time director. I'm talking about officer in default. Even chartered accountant, even statutory audit, internal auditor also falls into this definition of officer in default. When responsible for relevant job, and when they have not carried out that, then they attract these provisions, officer in default, as per the Companies Act. Compliance of one law does not make the transaction valid, meaning I've committed a fraud, I've paid GST on it, I've deducted TDS on it, it doesn't make the transaction valid. So, summary is, I say forensic auditors having improved management accountability, strengthened external auditor, independence and assisting audit committee members in carrying out their oversight functions by providing them assurance on internal audit reports, have impacted positively to corporate governance, thereby reducing corporate failures and improvement of investors. What by saying this, I'm saying hybrid is the way of life, meaning change as per the market expectations. If we don't change, change will change us. Let's do what systems can't do it, meaning systems today are able to do it. That's what we have seen, how RBI is coming out with so many preventive tools which are getting implemented onto it. Let us create value to it. So having said, I'll just complete this with Bhagavad Gita sloka. Yanisha sarva bhutanam tasyam jagrati samyami. Yashyam jagrati bhutani sanisha pashyato mune. The word mune I'm stressing here. The word mune I'm stressing here means Muni is sage, is experienced, because he's always into introspective stage on, like a chartered accountant should be on ethical, technical, and professional standards. And if you are always with experiencing the application of ethical, technical, and professional standards, that gives us wisdom, and that wisdom strives us towards better quality. Thank you very much for your patient listening.
Thank you so much, sir, for making all of us aware with minor technicalities of the subject and point-to-point clarities. Thanks for such engaging session. Thank you so much. Now, I would like to start question and answer session with all our speakers. We are having with us Premna, sir, and Yuki, ma'am. So, I'm taking few of the questions. Okay. There is one question. There are a lot of similarities between auditing standards and internal auditing standards. So, while conducting an internal audit assignment, can we use auditing standards also and techniques also?
I think Madam will respond. Yuki, Madam will respond.
Yeah, so in fact, internal audit standards, they are more focused towards the techniques of how to do an internal audit. So they should be referred if it is an internal audit engagement. And basically, auditing is requiring to use the same, like the auditing, whether it is an internal audit or any external audit, the basic things are remaining the same, but the objective differ. The way, like the result and the stakeholders expectation differ. So if it's an internal audit, then definitely internal audit standard should be referred.
Okay, okay, thank you, ma'am. There is one more question. Uh, which internal audit technique would have avoided frauds like Vijay Mallya fraud and Nirav Modi, as we have heard about them?
Yeah, it's a diversion. It's a clear diversion of money. So all the standard, like say SA 520, we have seen analytical procedures could have highlighted it. SA 315 kind of, I don't remember the exact number of internal audit standards, but I'll refer to the similar standard in standards on auditing, which is more or less it is same. The standards on SA 315, the procedure, the material misstatement where it can happen, the environment in which it is happening. All those standards could have definitely highlighted those frauds.
Okay, okay. Thank you so much. So, due to some reason, I guess Gyan Chandra Mishra ji is not available with all of us right now. So, ending this session, I'm really thankful to all the eminent speakers, Remna ji, Yuki ma'am, and Ravindran sir, for devoting so much of their precious time for benefit of the members and profession. Thank you all the IESB board, Charanjot Singh Nanda sir, and Arun sir, and Gyan sir for conducting this webinar series, and all the coordinating members. Thank you so much, all of you. Thank you so much to the audience also for such patience and listening this session very keenly. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am.